Okay. Well, that's what he said. Welcome everyone to tonight's Ordinary Council meeting, Monday the 8th of August. I'd also like to acknowledge those in the gallery tonight and also those viewing online. Item 1.1, attendance. Are there any apologies, Mr. Benny?
My first apology is for my cough, Deputy Mayor. Yes, apologies this evening from the Mayor, Jim Mamedi, from Councillor Lloyd Trong, and Councillor Angela Long has a leave of absence granted by Council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Benny. Item 1.2, acknowledgement of traditional owners of the land. Council acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and pays our respects to their elders past, present and emerging, while also recognising their deep and continuing connections to climate, culture and country. We also pay our respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and their elders and acknowledge their journey. Item 1.3, offering of prayer, reflection or affirmation. As part of Council's commitment to recognising the cultural and spiritual diversity of our community, the prayer, reflection or affirmation this evening will be offered by Mr. Bikramjit Singh from the Sikh community, a member of the Greater Dandenong Interfaith Network. Please stand.
Thank you. First of all, greetings from the Sikh Interfaith Council, Victoria. A small prayer from the Sikh community for the well-being of everyone in this world. Sarot Mehla Panjwa Abnasi Jiyan ko data Simrt sab mal khoi Gun Nidan Pagtan ko Bartan Birla Pave Koi Mere Man Jap Gur Gopal Prabh Soi Ja ki Sharn Paya Sukh Paye Bahor Dukh Na Hoi Rahao Vadpagi Sad Sang Parapat Tin Petat Durmat Khoi Tin Ki Tur Nanak Das Banche Jin Har Naam Hriday Paroi Vadpagi Sad Sang Parapat Tin Petat Durmat Khoi Tin Ki Tur Nanak Das Banche Jin Har Naam Hriday Paroi. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Item 1.4, confirmation of minutes of previous meeting. Do I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Garrard.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 1.5, disclosures of interest. Mr. Benny, are there any disclosures of interest tonight?
There are none received, Deputy Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Benny. Item 2, Officers' Reports, Part 1. Item 2.1.1, Petitions and Joint Letters.
Mover, thanks.
Moved by Councillor Tan, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 2.2, Statutory Planning Applications. 2.2.1, Planning Scheme Amendment C224GDAN, Noble Park Major Activity Centre. Is there a mover?
Move.
Moved by Councillor Dark, seconded by Councillor Tan. Are there any questions? Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can I ask the relevant officer to clarify that in Commercial Zone 1, 6 stories are recommended as a limit. However, applications for more than 6 stories can be considered. Is this correct?
Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor, the answer is you're correct. It is a limit of 6 stories. That is the preferred height limit, but it can be more on application and can be considered. But I'd like to give a more detailed response to that. And unfortunately, it's a bit more detailed than the brief yes to your question. It's only those sites that are located in the Commercial 1 zone and identified in the adopted Noble Park Activity Structure Plan as key redevelopment sites, and that have a lot size in excess of 2,000 square metres, that have a preferred maximum height of 6 stories. The others don't. It's just those major redevelopment sites. Those Commercial 1 sites that are identified as key redevelopment sites but do not meet the 2,000 square metre lot size have a preferred maximum height of 5 stories, so it scales down. And all other Commercial 1 zone sites, that is the non-key redevelopment sites in the activity centre, have a preferred maximum height of 4 or 5 stories. The heights are preferred heights rather than mandatory heights, as the State Planning Department, DELP, and the Minister for Planning will not support mandatory heights. This is the same situation we have in our general residential zone in Schedules 1 and 2, and Council has preferred height stories, height limits of 2 stories for these areas, as the Minister would not approve a mandatory height limit of 2 stories. Given they are preferred heights, it is possible that an applicant could submit an application for a development that has more stories than the preferred height, whether it's 4, 5 or 6. However, the gazettal of this planning scheme amendment will give Council a much greater chance of being successful in having these applications refused at VCAT if it goes beyond the preferred. And here I want to just go into a bit more detail, that it is important to note the following, that there are currently no height controls, either preferred or mandatory, in the Noble Park Activity Centre. And as such, should an applicant propose a development of 10 or 15 stories, hypothetically, for example, today, Council would have little chance of being successful in having this refused at VCAT, given the area is designated as a major activity centre under state planning policy. The preferred heights in the general residential zone have been highly successful in limiting the heights in those areas, and it is anticipated that the same would occur in this instance. We have something within the scheme that we can go back to. The heights have been fully considered and approved by Council previously when it adopted the Noble Park Activity Centre Structure Plan, and as part of that consideration, the sites were recommended for 8 stories were reduced to 6. The purpose of the current planning scheme amendment is to implement the controls of the approved structure plan, including heights, into the planning scheme. So it goes beyond just being a policy, it then becomes part of our planning scheme, which is why VCAT would give it greater weight than just relying on it simply as a policy. So we believe that it's a crucial element to keeping the height limits down in the activity centre, and the recommendation from officers then, of course, is that we send this off to the Minister for a panel to consider the proposed amendment. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Any further questions, Councillor Garrard?
Can I just follow up? Can I thank the officer for the elaborated response? Just a succinct answer. So it is conceivable that it could be 15 stories, that could be approved at VCAT and it could, or the Minister could approve. So it could go conceivably up to 15 stories in that commercial zone area.
Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, a developer could apply to have the higher limit, 10 stories, 12, 15. The chances of their success, though, are very, very much reduced with the amendment being entrenched within our planning scheme. And I believe that if one was to go today to VCAT, you would have a far greater chance because the Noble Park Activity Centre is a major activity centre in terms of the designation by state planning. However, I think that once we have our amendment in, should that amendment go in, the chances of them being successful at VCAT then become greatly diminished. And I would be very surprised to see anything of the sort happen at VCAT. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Are there any further questions?
Yes. Thanks,
Councillor
Deputy
Tan?
Mayor. My question just regarding to just with this motion, it's going to pass through to request to the Minister of Planning appointing the panel. How long does this process take after we pass it on to the Minister?
Madam Deputy Mayor, we hope that the Minister will respond within a couple of months, within a month or two, in other words, 4 to 8 weeks. Obviously, the timetable, the Minister, it's up to the Minister how quickly he responds, but we do believe that given the Minister's planners have already seen and given authorisation for the exhibition of the planning scheme amendment, it shouldn't take too long to appoint a panel. So hopefully I'll be able to come back to you within the next 4 to 8 weeks with a date at which that planning panel will be convened. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Tan, any other questions?
Yes. Last one, just regarding to the rezoning for this amendment. It's only affecting 9 properties on the list, which is 1,100 to 1,106 Heatherton Road, which is known as the petrol station at the moment. 1 Frank Street, Noble Park. Also 3 to 5 Frank Street, which is the existing car park, joined already at the which is extension to commercial of the call centre, and also number 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 Mon Parade, which is in Jarraman Ward. So my question is just regarding to the rate. So residential rate, now they're going to go to the commercial rate. So what's the effect on those property? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, the rates are determined, Councillor Tan, on the use of the property. Until the property is redeveloped in terms of a new commercial zoning, the current rate will continue to apply. The current rating will continue to apply. Just as with any other property, when there is a revaluation of the properties, obviously rates then change. But the revaluations, even then, will be based on the use, the ongoing use of the property, not on its zoning. Thank you, Madam Deputy
Thank you,
Mayor.
Mr Bosman. Councillor Tan, do you have
Thank
any?
you. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Formosa, did you have your hand up? No.
No.
Okay, sorry, I might have been saying things. Any other questions? Okay, is there any opposition to this item? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 3, question time public. Mr Venny.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The first question this evening is from Gay Guest of Keysborough. It relates to DDO 5. I read the purpose of the design and development overlay is to identify areas which are affected by specific requirements relating to the design and built form of new development. Why have council officers decided to delete DDO 5 out of C244G planning amendment, which is now being referred to the planning minister, when it is a planning tool that is applied to areas which need specific requirements relating to the built form and design of new development? DDO 5 set requirements for the height, form and the general design of buildings, and residents expect our residents' amenity and neighbourhood character to be protected. Why does Council allow this to happen, especially when they need to go to VCAT over planning permits, especially the loose we can do anything commercial zonings, and then we will not have any barriers for future proposals? Mr Bosman can respond, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, thank you very much to Ms Guest. DDO 5 is not being removed or deleted from the proposed rezoning. In fact, this is the matter that has just been disposed of by Council now, the rezoning that has just been considered. There is an amendment to DDO 5, the DDO 5 is no longer being pursued on the residential sites on the northern side of Heatherton Road only. It's been reduced, and it's taking out of DDO 5 those properties on the northern side of Heatherton Road only. DDO 5 will remain throughout the remainder of the activity centre and will set out preferred heights throughout the Noble Park Activity Centre area. The reason for no longer pursuing the DDO 5 on residential sites along Heatherton Road is due to the fact that DELP required either the DDO 5 height limit in this area be increased from 2 stories to 3 stories, or the DDO 5 be removed from this area. It has been determined that to remove DDO 5 from this area only, as this land is zoned General Residential Zone Schedule 1, which already contains its own preferred height limit of 2 stories. To retain the DDO 5 in this area and increase the preferred height to 3 stories, which is the alternative that was offered by DELP, would have resulted in conflicting controls on this land and in additional height outcomes not sought by the Council or by the community. And again, I reiterate that DDO 5 will remain across the balance of the activity centre and will provide significantly increased built form guidance and future development for future development in the Noble Park Activity Centre. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Mr Benny.
The next question is also from Gay Guest of Keysborough. What do I get for my rates? Is being asked by many after reading the Mayor's letter, because right now a fair go is under threat in CGD, especially in some neglected wards. If you are not in the activity centre, then the back blocks of wards Springvale South, Noble Park and Keysborough are being completely ignored and have become ugly enclaves with concreted yards that are lowering the tone of these wards and being totally ignored by our elected representatives and officers. Keysborough and east of Chandler Road has been historically ignored and now has no primary school, dog park, pathway along Tower Court, despite being asked for to make the pedestrian access easier to the railway station. Dangerous intersection, Orloff/Isaac/Chandler. Footpath replacements cancelled, December 9, 2019, not restarted. Tree roots destroying nature strips because of the lack of root pruning. Overdevelopment trumping over environment. Major problems were highlighted throughout the last council elections and reflected in the super narrow results and have not been acted upon. Yet over the border, that is the bypass, our rates are being spent on expensive infrastructure. 3 dog parks side by side, a hub when Taddison Park was always meant to be the hub, false consultation, drawn out plans and strategies not delivered in a timely manner. To improve, councillors need to actually go out and speak and mix with their community. What is the hub of Keysborough, the Uniting Church or the shopping centre? When will a genuine feasibility study actually happen so it can be actioned? This is a complex question from Gay Guest that includes a number of sub-questions, and for all of those reasons I'd prefer to take the matter on notice and give a comprehensive response that can be included in the minutes and document Council's position on these matters. But if for those listening to this Council meeting tonight were under any misapprehension that Council does not fairly allocate its rate expenditures, I would certainly seek to correct that this evening. Council spends a lot of time in seeking to ensure that its capital program that involves well over 100 projects, not just the half a dozen or so that do get highlighted and emphasised, are distributed right across the municipality, and certainly Council's service offering is dedicated and directed to where community needs are greatest. And community needs can vary from those that are in need in terms of what they require to live from day to day, to those that newer residents might need in terms of having new infrastructure that some other residents have enjoyed for many, many years. So, as I say, it is a complex question. There is more to it than might seem to be the case, and I'm determined to provide a comprehensive response, and we'll do so by the next meeting.
Thank you, Mr Benny.
The next question is from Earl Misser, who I understand would like to verbally ask his question.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Some 3 weeks ago, I met with Maria and another gentleman from the Parks and Gardens office to discuss trees and the well-being of a nature strip. They were very polite, very kind, and very professional. I'd like to pass on that thanks to them. Further, I'd like to, while I'm with that portion, I would just like to make a complaint issue here with Brady Road and Glaston Road. There has been a pothole right on that corner there, exactly for 11 days, including the weekend, which I don't take into account. 11 days. Nothing has been done. Deputy Mayor, don't tell me, please, that no officer has driven past or fallen into that pit hole where they couldn't get it fixed in time. Nothing has happened. The next one is Park Road and Preston Road. There are two potholes, sorry. One over on the other side, one on this side. And they were being filled in. To be exact, 1 month ago they were filled in. And I made sure I told the neighbor opposite, when they do come there to give me a call. I only live around the corner. And I came back there and I saw the man put the stuff in there, banged on it, and he went off. So I challenged him while he was doing the second one. He said, that's what we are asked to do, and that will work. It'll take 1 year to come out. If you check it, Mr. Deputy Mayor, those two holes have appeared again. So what I want to say is, I then got in touch with Vic Roads. And I spoke to an engineer there, and they told me very clearly that that product is not, that's only a very temporary product, only till you can get there. Those two holes have been out there for a month. And I like some officer or the other to go and have a look and try and do something better. And because the cars we drive today are getting damaged and we can't gain compensation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the question. Mr Benny.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I can assure Mr Misso that an officer will be on site tomorrow to inspect those two sites. We must make sure before you leave this evening that we have the precise location, so if you can provide those to us, we will have an officer there tomorrow who will review and take any necessary action. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Benny.
Excuse me, Deputy Mayor, can I just make a comment? I've actually just reported that pothole this morning, so the officers, I think, are aware. Maybe just didn't have a chance to act upon it straight away, but it was reported, so thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Are there any further questions?
No, there are no further questions, Deputy Mayor, but there was one question taken on notice at the last meeting. It was from Ros Blades in relation to the Noble Park Community Centre. That has been answered and is tabled this evening.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Item 4, Officers' Report, Part 2, 4.1 Other, 4.1.1, Recommended Applicants for the Disability Advisory Committee. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Dark. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.1.2, Recommended Applicants for the Positive Ageing Advisory Committee. Moved by Councillor Tan. Moved by Councillor Tan.
Happy to second that.
Seconded by Councillor Formoso. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.1.3, report on matters discussed at councillor briefing sessions and pre-council meetings 18 to 25 July 2022. Moved by Councillor Lim.
Happy to second it.
Seconded by Councillor Milkovich. Are there any questions? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 4.1.4, list of registered correspondence to Mayor and councillors. Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor Lim. Are there any questions? Councillor
Yes,
Milkovich.
Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Just got a question regarding a letter from the concerned Dandenong resident regarding trucks parking on Ann Street, Dandenong, causing some safety issues. Could an officer please elaborate, let us know what's been done about that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Mr Bosman.
Madam Mayor, thank you. Councillor, I'll take that question on notice. We'll get back to you with the information that you're seeking, and I'll copy all other councillors into that response. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor
Thank you. That's
Milkovich.
it.
Okay.
One
Any
question.
other? Councillor Tan.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. There's an email from Homes for Homes asking council to support its aim to end homeless in Victoria. Have any response? Chair?
Yep. Mr Devine. Or Mr
Madam
Bosman.
Mayor, we'll take the question on notice. That correspondence will be sitting somewhere between Mr Devine and myself. I'll track it down and we'll get, as with the question from Councillor Milkovich, I will get an answer to you and copy other councillors in.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr Bosman. Any other questions?
Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Formoso.
Thank you. Yes, there's also an email for the Mayor from the Commonwealth Games team calling for community ideas for the 2026 Commonwealth Games, which is with the deadline of August 12th. So could I have further information regarding that, please?
Mr Devine.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor. Council officers have prepared an expression of interest that we've submitted to the State Government, outlining a range of opportunities in the City of Greater Dandenong and events that we'd like to work with the State Government and the Commonwealth Games Committee to stage in Greater Dandenong. So once we receive a response from the Government, we'll let the councillors know the outcome.
Thank you, Mr Devine. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'd like a copy of that, if I could, please, Deputy Mayor.
Sure. Yes, that can be arranged. Thanks,
Thank
Councillor Formoso. No problem. No further questions. Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Item 5, notices of motion. 5.1, notice of motion number 21, resourcing council's environmental responsibilities going forward. Is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Garrard, seconded by Councillor O'Reilly. Are there any questions? Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Acting Chair. My question to the relevant officer, just to understand this notice of motion as well, whilst I understand looking at the sector, including the allocation of staff and the current resources in play, is there also the provision as well to look at the allocation of staff from within that directorate but within other departments as well? Things such as the Planning Enforcement, Planning Compliance Directorate, given that it falls within the Waste and Recycling Act with non-compliant industrial properties.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Councillor, the report will look at all areas across council that deal with environmental issues. It will talk about, obviously, the number of staff that are directly involved within the City Planning and Design Directorate. Let's call them environmental planners, but don't forget we have a model that goes across council where a number of staff from right across council are involved in the pursuit of the environmental agenda. I will cover all of that in the report. So in terms of planning enforcement, I'm not too sure whether, I'll try and cover as much as I possibly can, and with the role that planning enforcement play might get a mention as part of that. But obviously there's a lot of work to be done before I can come back to council with a response. But we will be looking at a whole of council audit or a whole of council response to what resources are currently employed in pursuit of the environmental agenda. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Dark, any further questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just my next question, I suppose, to the relevant director. I note that it states that the total number of environment and sustainability, including parks and waste, each or full-time equivalent each council has. Is this benchmarking all 79 councils in Victoria, or is this all exactly how this is being done, or are we benchmarking against councils within the area in terms of Casey, Monash, Mornington Peninsula, Frankston, Kingston, just to get a bit of an idea in terms of the workload that may be required?
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Bosman?
Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, I don't know whether this is against a particular council. Obviously, in looking at benchmarking, I'd have to go a bit far and wide, look at the neighbouring councils. The notice of motion obviously references some councils. I don't think it's an exhaustive list of all councils, all of the councils across metropolitan Melbourne. It's an example of what other councils might have. But then again, the report that I'll bring before council goes to more than just counting the number of heads doing particular jobs. It'll also look at the different models that are employed by councils. Some councils have all of their eggs in just an environmental planning team basket, whereas others like us would have a broader spread of that workload and the pursuit of that environmental agenda across council. So I hope to be able to answer all of those questions in bringing a comparison of how we approach the environmental agenda to how other councils approach that environmental agenda, try and put some numbers to it, and be faithful to the notice of motion that's been put before you tonight.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. I think Councillor Garrard also would like to respond to the question.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I thank Councillor Dutt for the question. The intent of the notice of motion was for comparable councils and leaving that to the discretion of the officers that do the report. But the idea was that the City of Greater Dandenong has, thankfully, a lot of green space and is fairly unique in that and is comparable to similar councils in neighbouring LGAs and probably not particularly comparable to inner city councils. So the intent was that the councillors would benchmark against comparable councils in terms of the amount of green space and population. However, leaving that to the discretion of the officers themselves.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Councillor Dark, did you have any further questions?
Thank you, Chair. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Councillor
I've
Milkovich.
got a quick question. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just in regards to the report that's proposed to come before the council during one of the council briefing sessions, is that report going to be prepared purely by the council officers and staff, or are we going to use some external companies to source that?
Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Councillor Milkovich, it will be a report that's prepared in-house. We won't outsource that report. We will do that within the resources that are in my directorate. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Is there any opposition? As there's no opposition, I declare this item carried. Yes, Councillor Garrard for comment.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I just want to point out I have asked for exemption not to stand tonight, so not showing disrespect, just old age. I just want to thank my fellow councillors for supporting this notice of motion. We saw in our recent survey that 84% of the population think that the local government has an important role to play in meeting the climate emergency that we are in, and that 75% want us to act in this space. So I think it's a really good move on our part to consider the resources we're allocating to addressing the climate action strategy. We are one of the 114 councils in Australia that does have a climate emergency strategy, and so I think it's appropriate that we make sure that our council is adequately resourced to meet the needs, the expectations of the community and the needs regarding the strategy. So I thank my fellow councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Garrard, and thank you for putting the notice of motion forward. Any other comments for this item? Okay. Item 6, reports from councillors, delegated members and councillors' questions. I might start with Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, my first question this evening is from Mr Tupperfield in Northgate Drive, the corner of Teddy Crescent in Springvale South. He has been raising quite a few questions to do with the Kumura development and the access of Teddy Crescent that is there. Just want to know whether the relevant officer, whether somebody from planning can get in touch with him or go visit him at his house. He had some questions about, I suppose, the drainage and earthworks that have been occurring, and also the access via the Curfew channel and just the destruction of the Curfew channel that's there. And also, in addition to that, he is an older gentleman. He has asked whether it's possible to get some printed hard copies of the plans, either put into the post or actually given to him, just so he has a bit of an idea of what is going on. If we could please look at that.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dark, absolutely yes. If you'll just pass on to me, please, the details, we'll make contact with the gentleman and provide him with the assistance and information he needs. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Chair. My next question has been from a couple of residents on Chandler Road, who I'll pass through the details shortly. There's been some concerns about the level of parking at the shopping complex on the corner of Parkmore Road and Chandler Road. There's been some larger restaurants which have opened up, and it's echoing something very similar that we previously had at the Yarraman Village, where there was a lot of restaurants that moved in and the bankment of cars that seemed to be banking up. There's been the bank up of some illegal parking in the street as people are going through the area. I was wondering whether we could please have a look and see what options are available for us in terms of whether the parking is sufficient enough or whether we need to look at other options to have a quicker turnover of cars such that then there isn't people parking illegally over other people's driveways.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Kearsley.
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Deputy Mayor. Certainly, if you could pass on those details, I could certainly get the transport team to have a look at what options there may well be. Of course, when we change any signage, we normally consult with the traders and those sorts of things. So certainly we can research the initial and also have a discussion with the compliance area with regards to whether or not they've been out there recently with regards to any infringements and things like that. So we can definitely look at it.
Thank you, Mr Kearsley. Councillor Dark.
Thank you, Chair. No further questions.
Thank you. Councillor Milkovich.
That was quick. Thank you, Chair. Attended quite a few events in the past couple of weeks. I'd like to mention a special one that I attended both with yourself, Deputy Eden Mayor, which was organised by the Sandown Greyhounds Racing Club in support of the Servants of Two Hearts and Reach Out Because We Can charities. Wonderful charities. I've got to admit, I didn't know what work they've done, but they had a presentation tonight, and what a worthy cause, helping people when they've fallen hard times, from homeless to hungry. Absolutely wonderful. The spirit in the room, it was actually a large room, the spirit of the room and the atmosphere was just amazing. And to see that many volunteers dedicating their free time and their commitment to the cause like that was absolutely fantastic. The food was delicious. We had I think the raffle tickets were sold out on the night, and there's a couple of exciting prizes, and the atmosphere all around with dancing was just phenomenal. So congratulations to both Sandown Greyhounds Racing Club and these wonderful charities that help our community in the times of a need. I've got a couple of questions. Regarding mobile police camera that was installed on Palm Plaza, how long will that be there for? Can someone answer that?
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, Councillor, I don't know the answer to that question. As you heard this evening, in terms of the program that, together with Vic Police, we are undertaking in the area, it's obviously there pretty rapidly. It's been put there at short notice after our requests. How long it will be there, I suppose, depends up to Vic Police themselves. It's their infrastructure or their facility. But I'm certainly happy to go back to the manager on our side who has that liaison role with Vic Police and ask if there's any idea of how long it's going to be there for. But you know, it's obviously part of a wider program of policing in the area, and we should see that together with other initiatives that are being put forward there for quite a while now.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Mr Benny, did you?
Sorry, could I just add to Mr Bosman's response? I agree with it entirely. But as you also heard earlier, and as we've indicated, this is an evidence-based approach that the police are taking, that we are taking. The police, as I understand it, have identified about 12 locations in the activity centre that would be ideally suited to having infrastructure of this type set up. So it's not just that location, there could be others. And the evidence basis will be that if, when it's positioned in the location it generates the intelligence that they're looking for, it'll probably stay there for as long as it generates intelligence. If not, it might be moved to another location, which could only be 50 metres along Palm Plaza. But the commitment that we understand exists, as Mr Bosman has indicated, is it will remain in this area until such time as these issues are satisfactorily addressed.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Councillor Milkovich.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Well, that's great to hear. And also to supplement that, I think we had a great meeting the other day. What was it called? Coffee with the Cop and Councillor. There was quite a few coffees served and some donuts. So it was great to see that the police is out on a beat. And it was also great to hear from, I think, Senior Sergeant Colin, that they are committed to getting out there again in uniform and walking the streets, because I think from what they've heard from a lot of the residents that the perception of safety wasn't there, but the police presence in general would help address those sort of issues quite dramatically. So that's great to see that the police is listening to us and obviously state government. Now, my next question and final question is regarding, and I was asked this by a couple of business owners along Lonsdale Street, would it be possible to remove park benches in a little pocket park between what used to be Old O'Brien office and the party shop, where we constantly have issues of antisocial behaviour, people sitting on benches, drinking, just empty bottles day in, day out. And I think our Mayor, Jim Mehmedi, is well aware of that situation. Would it be possible to leave the park but just get rid of the benches so people don't congregate there? Because I've never seen anyone with small kids going there at all. It's mostly occupied day and night time by unsavoury characters.
Thank you, Councillor Milkovich. Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, this very same Safer Streets program, this initiative that's being undertaken between ourselves, the traders in the area and Vic Police, will consider all of these sorts of options. I think until such time as we have all of the facts assembled, until such time as we have all of the data and intelligence gathered from the initial part of this exercise, I think it would be premature to start removing any infrastructure, but certainly whether or not such infrastructure should be removed will become part of that gathering of information. And then in due course, in fact, not too long from now, I think the undertaking that was given by the Manager Regulatory Services was to come back to you within the next fortnight. We can start looking at what are those interventions that are required, and then in consultation with Mr Hughesley, if part of that recommendation is the removal of street furniture, then we will look into that as well, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
So-
Councillor Milkovich.
So,
Councillor Dark.
Just a supplementary, just to Councillor Milkovich's question. I'm very familiar with the park in question to which he refers to. As somebody who previously worked in central Dandenong, I've walked past recently, and I actually only walked past, would have been the end of last week, going down to an office there. There is a substantial issue there. There was empty goon bags on the ground. There was some broken glass of cheap bottles of wine that had been smashed around, and there was some unsavoury characters, probably about 12 of them, which is right next to the building. I think there's a party supplies store, which I believe council owns, and then also the building on the left, which was the butcher store that caught fire that I think council was intending on demolishing once upon a time. I just want to find out, I'm not sure whether there is, but if there could be CCTV installed, given we own both assets on either side, I think that could definitely be a key point. But I know when I walked past at 2:30 in the afternoon, they were asleep. One was asleep and had clearly spilt alcohol over his chest. And there was, it's clearly an eyesore, particularly as you come right into central Dandenong. So I think Councillor Milkovich's comments about the benches being removed sooner rather than later certainly is warranted.
Thank you, Councillor Dark. Mr Bosman, would you like to respond?
Madam Deputy Mayor, yes, I think we might have captured you on the CCTV, Councillor Dark. I recognise
it. A nice suit on Dandenong.
As you know, there is a mobile CCTV unit there. There is that intelligence gathering. Hopefully, the work that we're doing will see a change in behaviour in the first instance. I don't think the change in behaviour is brought about by the removal of the infrastructure itself. I think it's all part and parcel of a bigger exercise. And if as part of that, there's an early recommendation to remove the benching, then we certainly will do that. But I think let's give the program, at least this first couple of weeks, chance to gather that intelligence, to have some positive impact in the area. You'll not just see police on the beat, cops on the beat. You'll actually see the mounted unit in the area as well. So there's going to be quite a presence, and I think in the result of that, you will see a change in behaviour, a relocation of some of the troubled hotspots. And as Mr. Benny mentioned earlier, it's not the only hotspot, there are others, and this is why the program needs to be able to run for a while. It's about looking at the broader precinct. Certainly the focus at this stage is on that area that you and Councillor Milkovich have commented on, and once we have suggestions, once we have recommendations from Vic Police as to how to deal with that particular area and the park itself, we will act on those, but we'll bring that all back to councillors as part of regular updates and briefing of councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Bosman. We'll move on to Councillor Formoso.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Speaking of cameras, obviously the hot topic this evening, wanted to say a big thank you to our team for finally placing a mobile camera at 32 Stud Road to start collecting data in regards to the illegal dumping that's been happening there for decades. So a huge thank you to our team. And just a quick question in regards to, interestingly, no one has dumped anything there since the cameras have been placed there. So obviously people are aware that they are doing the wrong thing. What are we doing if we do catch someone illegally dumping? How long will the cameras be there for? And can we just have it there permanently, please?
Thank you, Councillor Formoso. Mr. Kearsley?
Thank you, Councillor. Through you, Deputy Mayor. With regards to the timing, I can certainly provide an update to all councillors in the next couple of days. We have negotiated with the provider to use it in terms of a pilot program just to see its effectiveness. With regards to compliance, that's a matter that would need to be considered by Mr. Bosman's area with regards to any local law. It would be a matter of whether or not the appropriate evidence was collected with regards to identifying those people who had dumped. We would probably need, I would say, number plates or those sorts of things to further that. So I'd probably have to leave that answer there. And certainly with regards to the timing, we can provide some further advice as to its further use subject to the agreement that we have with the provider. We're very hopeful that we would at least look for something that is a minimum of 12 months and rotate it through a number of other areas where we are facing the same sort of dumping issue, but also use it proactively with regards to maybe events and other things that council run as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearsley. Councillor Formoso?
Thanks, Mr. Kearsley, and a huge thank you. The residents are extremely pleased, and like I said, we're already seeing some great results, so hopefully we can get to the bottom of this situation. My second question is in regards to the cat curfew. It's something that's been brought up by quite a few of the residents in my ward in particular. And I know during COVID, the increase of feral cats has just been huge, over 1 million, I believe, in Victoria alone. I know I've caught 4 feral cats myself with our cat traps. I'd like to know what we're doing in regards to the cat curfew and the issues that we are having with feral cats. I understand that we did an animal management plan just recently, but our update in regards to the cat curfew, I see that it's working really, really well in other municipalities, and it's something that I'd really like to advocate for again.
Thanks, Councillor Formoso. Mr. Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, thank you, Councillor Formoso. I'm not too sure how much you're around the corner on the screen here, so my apologies. There was a briefing of councillors recently by the Manager Regulatory Services on the Domestic Animal Management Plan as well as the cat curfew. I'm happy to bring that back to either yourself individually or to the councillors again for a briefing and an update on that. Certainly a cat curfew is the recommendation by the officers that we proceed with a cat curfew. However, it was part of a broader exercise, not just in isolation. Its effectiveness would be greatly enhanced by it being part of a broader suite of initiatives. And as I said, I'm happy to sit down with you, Councillor, and take you through that. But with regard to the cat curfew, it is the recommendation of officers as part of the Domestic Animal Management Plan to proceed with a cat curfew to bring that about. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Formoso.
That's all from me. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Mr Bosman.
Thank you. Councillor Tan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I had a great pleasure to attend the Springvale Snowfest, which was held on the 31st of July 2022. So it was a great success, and a lot of people turned up, around probably thousands. So just want to say thank you to our staff, especially the sponsors and all the volunteers for their great work. So well done to the community service team. My question for tonight, question one, just regarding to the Harbour Road and Corrigan Road projects. Stated on the Deputy Mayor, through you, so on the website stated that the construction meant to be started in July, but at the moment the work hasn't been started yet. So just through you, Deputy Mayor, just need to ask the relevant officer what's an update on that project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, I missed the name that you...
Harbour Road and Corrigan Road.
In terms of the traffic lights?
Yes.
Yes, I'll take that one notice. I'm not aware of the reasons for the delay. I'll ask the relevant project manager for that and give that information to you and the other councillors as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Tan.
Thank you. And I've got a few questions from our residents, just mainly regarding to local roads and traffic issues. And most of them are related to the Department of Transport. Through you, Deputy Mayor, could the relevant officer can list all the roads or street, any local roads that belong to looking after by the Department of Transport, and have an instruction of what to do. So instead of going through to us, we have an instruction of what they can go through. We can upload anything, instruction on the Greater Dandenong website. If you can do that, it would be great. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Mr Keasley.
Yes, certainly. I'll ask the Transport and Traffic team to immediately look at an opportunity where we can add to our existing web pages that relate to traffic and transport to identify, as a minimum, at least a list of Department of Transport roads, and then perhaps the best contact details of where any issues should go to. However, it is always a good idea to let us know, because we can add that to any advocacy campaigns as well. So I'll certainly get them to have a look at the website, look at the pages and see what additional information we can provide and get that set up as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Keasley.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Tan. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, everyone. On the Tuesday, the 26th of July, I had an opportunity to attend and also gave a speech at Youth Summit, City of Dandenong Youth Summit. It's a very great pleasure to interact with all the youth and the leader, the young leader. And also on that day, that morning, they want me to talk and to share about my own experience, especially how to overcome challenges and showing my resilience. On Friday, the 29th of July, I attended the AGM of Springvale Italian Senior Citizen Club. Unpredictable, as usual, as last year, they want me to be chairman to conduct the election, the new member for their organization. And secondly, they gave a speech a little bit about what we call health and well-being for the elderly. I gave a bit of a chance to tell them about how to look after themselves, the miracle 6 medication in the world. And on Sunday the 31st, like Councillor Tan and so many councillors on that day, we enjoyed so much about our snow face. It's a very amazing, very successful, and people come all over Melbourne to come to Springvale, because I met so many people that rarely they come to Springvale. They came on that day, and the most important, I would like to thanks to Mr. John Benny and his crews to organize this unbelievable award-winning festival. That's a very great one that people admire and appreciate. On the 4th of August, I had a chance again to have a meeting with Lisa Moore. She's a president of Greater Dandenong Chamber of Commerce. We had a very long discussion, very long one, and we come with the idea that it's a great idea to form a Springvale Multicultural Chamber of Commerce under the umbrella of Greater Dandenong Chamber of Commerce. And also on the 4th, because Councillor Rhonda and also Eden Poster came just for vaccination, and they told me about how amazing Springvale, very lively, the traffic is unbelievable. Rhonda could not find a car park, maybe something like that. She had to park at the railway station. And both of them very passionate actually about Springvale. And they're really, willing to help me to make Springvale a better place. And also on the 5th, I think on the 5th, on the Sunday, the 7th, I had a chance to meet with councillor from city of Maribyrnong. She came for 2 reasons. The first reason, she really wanted to see Springvale, because after she had been to Springvale for a long time, and she discovered that like Sunshine, or like Footscray or Richmond, not many people go to that city anymore, but she heard a lot about Springvale, very lively, very busy, and the Snowfest that attracted her to come to talk to me, because a lot of her residents and her friends and her relatives came to Springvale Fest, and so exciting, and how to organize that. I say, not my job to do that, but you can contact us. Probably Johnny King or Mr. Jim Dewan and so on. That they the one responsible to organize that. And one more thing, she said, how to get to organize this truckload of snow. I told her a bit about how to brought snow from Mount Bulla, because I had a long talk with David Clark. He's the one who told me what to do. Need 3 truckload and 3 trailers as well. Prepare from Friday to Saturday night. The truck had to stay at Mansfield overnight on Sunday night, and had to leave Mansfield about 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever, something like that. It's a long story. Just told her about that. And she said, can I approach David Clark? I said, probably unlikely, because I talked to him. He's only willing to sponsor our city only for the last, I can't remember how many years he told me. Just over 10 years? That's right. I said hands off. I didn't say that. I didn't have to say that. I just said that unlikely, because he told me that he sponsored the city of Greater Dandenong only. He told me like that. Yeah, I had a bit of chance to talk to him a lot. He's willing to come to Springvale again to probably catch up with me for lunch or whatever. That's a good success, very, very success, and very exciting about actually. And also on the another reason that she came for more reason, because she didn't see me attend what we call the Handbook for Cultural Diverse Victorian Consideration running for local government, because I accept the invitation. I told her that because unpredictable of that day, because I had so many commitments suddenly came that I didn't really realize it. I had to send my apology on the last minute. Yeah, that's probably the main reason. And in that book, they talk about life of 13 councillors from diverse community, from diverse background. That's a very good book that she came from for that reason to give to me as well. And one more reason that she came to me, she wanted me to be part of NDIS to serve multicultural community in Victoria, organized by one of the professors from Monash Health. And I said, I don't mind to be part of her. Therefore, she won herself. Her name Councillor Cook Farm. She want me and her and plus the professor to organize that. I said, that's fine. And I'm going to talk to my relevant director, officer, whatever, if I can have a chance to do that. Yep. And the last one is on the 6th. Today, actually, this afternoon, I had a long talk with Mr. An Sang Hong, president of Liaison Association of Chinese Community. Regarding to Lunar New Year, just would like to inform everyone, we're going to have a Lunar New Year for multicultural community, like I mentioned last time. We are thankful for the council, our city, to squeeze this organization for the 2nd of September, Friday, 2nd of September, to celebrate, to give out our 1,000 mooncake to everyone, over Chinese Elderly Association. And he want me to be part of it, and I also, as one of the sponsors, I said, I don't mind under my pharmacy, not myself. And in the afternoon, another gentleman, he's a president of, I can't remember what he's, of mandolin music group from Neighborhood House, Chinese traditional music, to organize Lunar New Year as well. He want me to help him to organize, to sponsor, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, I don't mind to help him. And that's about all for my last fortnight. My first question is want to ask the relevant officer only about every time we have a big event, can we let one of the councillors, even in that ward or even different ward, let me take turn to give a speech about their vision, about their achievement, about what they want to do for their ward. At least we can promote ourselves. That's for me. What the last 20-odd years or 30 years, I listen to Radio 3 AW or so many media. They talk a lot about council, local government do nothing, they do this, they didn't do anything. To me, my understanding is that we probably didn't promote ourselves hard enough. We work very hard, we are the front line, we talk very closely to our community, to our residents, but they don't know how hard work we are. Therefore, I think from my point of view, we should promote ourselves more, especially councillors of each ward. In a big event that just don't have to be everyone, just one or two or three of them each time to talk about their vision, their hard work. Therefore, at least word of mouth can spread across about how hard we are. Thanks, that's my first question.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Mr. Benny.
Deputy Mayor, that's not a question that I can give a simple yes or no answer to. I think it's something that the council needs to consider in some further detail. That is in fact the role of the Mayor. The Mayor would attend all major events and the Mayor would make a speech on behalf of Council to the community that would seek to address all of those things, just as you did as Deputy Mayor at Snowfest a couple of weeks ago, where you spoke about Springvale and important projects that are emerging in that. For others to speak at the same time, I think is again something that the Council would need to think about and consider. We do get a lot of feedback from people that speeches are nice, but not too many, thank you very much. So I think all of those things, information compared to people coming and want to participate in an event. So again, I'm not by any means saying, expressing an opinion whether it should or it shouldn't. I'm simply saying that it's something that I think the Council needs to consider in some further detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benny. Councillor Lim.
Thank you, Mr. Benny, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. To me, we don't have to have a long speech. The Mayor definitely has to speak, but at least one of the
Councillor Lim, I believe Mr. Benny's answered the question. I think what we need to do as councillors is perhaps discuss this as a council and make that decision as councillors. But thank you. Your microphone.
Probably not a question. Actually, just want to ask all the council officer or director, can we organize some sort of festival, we call food festival in Springvale? Because they don't have some sort of food festival. Like today, I saw this leaflet, very exciting one, curry festival. Springvale can do a lot of things about foods, for Springvale. Probably Councillor Eden Foster and Rhoda and the rest of the team maybe know what food all about Springvale. And if we can organize that, would be very good. And thirdly, to me, every time we organize a big event in Springvale or any other municipal or any other wards, can we don't block the traffic too early, like this Snowfest create a lot of headache for me, especially on Friday, on Saturday night. They block the traffic at 6 o'clock and business owner could not move could not move out of the multi-level car park. They stuck 1.5 hours. Myself, unfortunately, I was one of them there, and therefore they realized that they said, "Oh, they texted me back, he." That's all, something like that. If next event, can we block the traffic after 6 or 7:30 onward?
Okay.
Maybe probably a good idea. Thanks for
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Sounds like there are two parts to that question. One was about festivals in Springvale, and the second part was about traffic and managing that. I might put the traffic part to, both parts to Mr. Kearsley. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. As I previously indicated, we do have an allocation of money by this council to look at all sorts of extra activities that can be undertaken in Springvale, including matters that relate to perhaps the closure of Buckingham Avenue, the reuse and alternative uses of Multicultural Square. The issue of adding in extra events can certainly be looked at with regards to that piece of work. I understand that the brief is underway for preparation and will be out for consultants to seek participation or to seek to drive that particular project. We, at that time, once the consultants are appointed, part of what they will need to do is come and have a talk to you and engage with other councillors with regards to what their views may be as well. We expect that piece of work to take maybe 2 or 3 months. We will then bring that back for further consideration by council. With regards to the road closure, sorry, I missed part of it. Are you talking about something that had happened, or are you requesting something that is going to happen?
The question is already had happened last Saturday night for Snowfest, the Saturday on the 30th. And in the future, if we can change the way we block the road, would be good for the business owner only that day. Yeah.
I'll hand that one over to my friend here.
Thanks, Mr. Devine.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thanks for the question, Councillor. We note the feedback that was received in relation to the road closures, and as we debrief on this year's event, we will look at measures for next year, and we can talk to you about that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jim Devine. And actually on that day, I drank Marcus Foster. He tried to help to find someone else to come, but he said not possible. And a lot of feedback from business owners. They text to me, they rang me, they said, why can't you organize the police? Why can't you do this? Why can't you do that? I say, I'm stuck in the multi-level car park myself. I didn't have a chance to attend the charity dinner at Sandown Racecourse at all on that. The supporter even remind me as well on that night. Thank you. Thanks for that so much.
Thank you, Councillor Lim. Close call with the timing. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I'd certainly concur with Councillor Lim regarding the success of the Snowfest. It was fabulous to see that so well attended, and well done to those that organised that. Equally, the coffee with a cup and everything that started with C was a great success in Hemming Street. I attended with the Deputy Mayor. It was great to see their community turn up and have their questions and issues canvassed, and it was really telling to see that the community has a tremendous appetite for these events. So again, well done to the council for their great organisation around that event. Deputy Mayor, my first question is regarding the results of the recent community consultation survey, which were very pleasing, and congratulations to the council. Of slight concern was a decrease in satisfaction with the community consultation and engagement, and the decisions made in the interests of the community performance. Two parts to this question. In response, will the council put out an improvement plan outlining how they will improve consultation and engagement? That includes different communication and engagement strategies for different groups. And part B, will this plan include a rotation award consultations as raised by Councillor Dark at the last meeting?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Ms Sprague.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Garrard. The results of the community satisfaction survey were indeed very positive, with council scoring higher than both the metropolitan and state averages in all 8 key areas. Both the categories you mentioned were down 1 index point on the previous year's results, which is not really considered statistically significant. However, since this survey was undertaken, Council has adopted the revised and updated Community Engagement Planning Framework at the 27th of June Council meeting, which is in line with the Community Engagement Policy and available on Council's website. This is essentially a very detailed consultation plan which Council has now endorsed.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Councillor Garrard?
Yeah, so no improvement necessary. I think two index points for both the information I have. My next question, Deputy Mayor, is given that the City of Greater Dandenong is the most culturally diverse community in Victoria, with residents from over 160 birthplaces and over 130 languages spoken, how many residents used a language interpreter to complete the community survey?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Ms Sprague?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, from the survey sample of 400 people, there were 163 respondents who spoke a language other than English. However, none of them required an interpreter to complete the survey in a language other than English. So they were all able to understand and respond to the questions in English this year, for this year's survey.
Thank you, Ms Sprague. Councillor Garrard?
Yeah, I suggest that maybe that we are missing out on a large part of our community through that, and perhaps we could bring that up at another time. My next question is that in the same survey, 38% of residents said they were concerned about climate change, while 84% said Council had an important role to play in responding to climate change. So two parts to this question. How are we keeping the community informed about how the Council is addressing the challenges of climate change, including building community awareness of impacts, preparation, emergency responses and mitigation to build community resilience to cope with climate change? And part B, will the Council consider forming a dedicated community group to inform and guide the implementation of the Council's action?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Bosman?
Madam Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Garrard, with regard to keeping the community informed of the work being undertaken to address the challenge of climate change and to increase community awareness, this is undertaken through a number of avenues, including via the Sustainability and Climate Change web pages on our website, the monthly e-newsletter called Forever Files, through articles in other Council publications and newsletters, a physical presence at Council events, dedicated community climate workshops, and through social media. Officers are also continually exploring other opportunities to further engage with the community. And as to will we consider forming a dedicated community group, in terms of a dedicated community group to inform and guide the implementation of Council's climate action, Council has, as you know, its Community Sustainability Advisory Committee, which supports that purpose. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard?
Yes. Again, I think maybe we could revisit, the parameters of the Sustainability Advisory Group and look at whether there's room to have perhaps a broader group, but again, for another day. Deputy Mayor, my next question is, an operational plan has been promised for some time in the Keysborough Hub, including who will provide childcare services and what services will be offered. Parents are continually contacting me, asking when they can start planning to access these childcare services. When will a detailed operational plan be finalised, and when will it go out for public consultation?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Devine.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Garrard. The operational elements of the Keysborough South Community Hub are progressing as planned. The first step of this operational planning included the endorsement of a council-facilitated management model, which was endorsed in January 2022. This provides the oversight of all council services and working alongside the early years licensee to provide a strong outcomes and opportunities for the community. An expression of interest will occur for the early years licensee approximately 6 months before construction is completed. The next steps of this operational planning is the draft Keysborough South Community Hub Strategic Plan, which is scheduled for the Councillor briefing session on 15 August this year for approval to then proceed to public consultation. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Devine. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you. Thank you for your response. My next question is, recently 3 separate departments within council joined together to find a solution to a complex street parking issue in Keysborough South Church Street, coming up with a comprehensive plan. Will the council take the same approach to addressing the ongoing complex parking issues in Tyler's Lane in Keysborough South?
Thank you, Councillor Garrard. Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Deputy Mayor. The section of Church Road, which has recently been the subject of parking concerns, as you've outlined, is uniquely a narrow section of road in Keysborough South. It was designed at the narrower width in order to save a large number of significant trees. Tyers Lane, however, is the same width as most streets within the Keysborough South estate, and there is sufficient space for drivers to park on both sides of the road, while still allowing a single lane of traffic to pass through. While council officers are always welcome to discuss parking matters with the community and open to suggestion, any unique outcomes or options on Tyers Lane is unlikely to follow the example of Church Road. However, if residents wish to discuss parking concerns, they would be more than welcome to contact our officers directly, and we can undertake some further discussions with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you. Just to confirm, Mr Keasley, then we can arrange a consultation with the particular. Yep, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. My next question is, what is the expected completion date for the DNA gallery, and what is causing the delays? And part B of that question is, what is the cost, the change in cost from the tender price to the current anticipated cost, and what are the reasons for these?
Mr Keasley.
Thank you, Councillor. With regards to the timeframes, I'm at this point unable to give any information with regards to when we would expect that project to be completed. It's probably not the ideal situation that I would like to be in at this point. We are continuing to engage with the contractor with regards to their obligations under the contract. As soon as those discussions take place, including any possible legal advice that I may need to put to council, we will bring that matter for further consideration back to a council briefing in order to complete and finalise what we all believe was going to be a fantastic project, to make sure that we get it done as quickly as we can. With regards to any ongoing blowouts or costs, at this stage I can advise that there are no blowout on costs. However, we do need to consider the lack of action undertaken by the contractor over the last 12 months and also any pending increases that may take place due to COVID with regards to which we know have occurred on other projects with regards to increasing cost on materials and increasing supply on labour. And that's something, again, we can bring back to council in the coming weeks for further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Keasley. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Following on from my question the last meeting, can the relevant officer clarify, does the VC 216 override the provisions of our own ESD amendment C201, and if so, what changes will it make to our local policy? In particular, have any of the triggers changed?
Mr Bosman.
Madam Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Garrard, the recently gazetted VC 216 sets the state planning basis of support for environmental assessments on planning permit development applications. Our ESD policy sits separate to that, is not adversely or in any way affected, other than to say we now have a state provision that supports the principles of ESD being part of the assessment. So our existing policy continues to operate as it always has. The triggers that are in there continue to be functional, and C201 is unaffected by the VC amendment. So all it really does, the VC amendment just puts all councils that are using ESD policies and triggers, gives it a sounder base or more support from the state government in doing so. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor Garrard.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. What is the current status of the Greater Dandenong Climate Emergency Community Action Plan? And is our community emergency strategy was meant to be finished and adopted last financial year? What is the time frame for its finalisation, including opportunities for community input by residents? Mr Bosman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Councillor, as previously advised or discussed, this plan has been delayed due to COVID-19, which has impacted on the ability to undertake consultation and engagement activities with the community. Preparation of the strategy has commenced with external stakeholder consultation and community engagement to be undertaken in September and October of this year. An initial summary report will be provided to Council by the end of the calendar year, with the final strategy to be completed in early 2023. Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor
Thank you,
Garrard.
Deputy Mayor.
You've got 2 minutes. When is the new Greater Dandenong Asylum Seeker Refugee Action Plan coming to the Council briefing meeting, and will the draft plan then go out to public consultation, and if not, why not? Thank you. Mr Devine.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Garrard. The draft Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Plan was again discussed at the Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee meeting, or MAPSAC, on the 2nd of August. There are no plans to formally brief councillors or provide public exhibition of the one-page draft thematic plan, as its development and rationale have been documented in this year's MAPSAC meeting minutes, which are noted by councillors at regular council meetings. The minutes of the 2nd of August MAPSAC meeting will be tabled at the 12 September council meeting.
Thank you, Mr Devine. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Garrard. Yeah, you're done. Thank you. Okay. Councillor O'Reilly.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Deputy Mayor, I've got one question that stems from an idea that popped into my head. I think it might be useful. It'll be a question without notice to the Director of Planning. Deputy Mayor, my understanding is currently when we have a planning application and it's advertised to the local residents, so I think it's like a letterbox drop or something, basically saying, it's a letter from council saying, we've received an application at this address, and this is the date you have to object to it, and so on. And I think my understanding is that's pretty much all it says. And in my 10 years on council, I've noticed that many of the objections we get to planning applications are along, the same lines, like to do with, how much on-site parking there is and overlooking and so on. So it seems to be sort of some disconnect there, I think, that council could assist with. So the idea is that rather than just informing residents of that the planning application is here, you have to this date to object to it, could we also, in that communication, provide information on the general planning facts, such as, minimum on-site car parking is restrained by the Victorian government parking limits. Council can't insist for parking above the minimum Victorian level. The overlooking, so we tend to get quite a lot of objections from overlooking residents, thinking that people are going to be looking in their backyard, and things like that. And council deals with that by insisting in on opaque windows. So it's sort of like this information, and also some general information on how council deals with the density of applications. So this sort of brief general information would be, I'm trying to preempt some of the objections that we might be receiving that eventually don't go anywhere. So I think this would assist in saving time for both council, but importantly for the residents that are objecting, that think that council can insist on twice the amount of on-site parking and things like this. So it's important where there are that residents should still be able to object, firstly, and secondly, if there is a genuine reason for objection under planning code, that is put forward. But if it's objections where they're just run-of-the-mill sort of thing that basically never going to be dealt with under planning code anyway, I think we can preempt that. So hope I've communicated that reasonably clearly. It's a question without notice. So if I could get a brief response from the Director. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor O'Reilly. Mr Bosman, please.
Madam Deputy Mayor, an answer without notice. Councillor, there are two things here. In terms of responding or providing advice on specifics related to the application itself, that wouldn't be really possible for two reasons. One, it requires an assessment of an application that has come in and we wouldn't have done yet, and one wouldn't want to assess it twice. If there are changes that happen as a result of discussions between officers and the applicant, then what do you do with that? That all would be then, you go back to the people that you've notified. So I think anything around the specifics of the application wouldn't be able to be conveyed to the surrounding residents. And it's not just our objections. Our letter says to make a submission, whether it's a supporting or objecting submission. In terms of maybe a brief general statement that says that there are certain provisions where council does not have discretion to increase provisions, for example, yes, you said parking, we might be able to put something in there, but again, it would require the reader to go back and interpret how that application then stacks up against those Victoria planning provisions. Almost requires a level of expertise on behalf of that reader to look at the two and say, yes, it does, or no, it doesn't. But look, I can certainly have a think about how some brief wording on where that flexibility lies and where it doesn't lie. What we are looking at doing at the moment, though, is on the notices, the public notices that get erected on the property, and in fact, I think we might already have something similar on the letters that go out, is a QR code where it takes the reader directly to the planning application. So you don't have to come in, look at the register, ask for a copy of the file, etc. It will take you directly to the set of plans. So the reader will be able to have a sense of what's being proposed. Well, not a sense, they'll have the detail, not just a sense, they'll have the detail of what is being proposed, what has been submitted to council. But certainly willing to have a look at how that might be supplemented or augmented by some statements to say that a res code assessment generally doesn't allow council the opportunity to vary rules that sit within the Victoria planning provisions. Happy to have a look at something like that and have that discussion in coming back to you, Councillor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Bosman. Councillor O'Reilly?
That was all. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. On Saturday, 30th of July, I attended the Empowering Communities Hemming Street Precinct Initiative, aka Coffee with a Cop and a Councillor, with my fellow councillor, Councillor Garrard. It was a great opportunity for residents of Hemming Street Precinct and even further out in Dandenong West to be able to voice their concerns in the area, voice their ideas, but also have a chat with not just myself and Councillor Garrard, but the local police as well. That night, I went to a charity dinner dance hosted by Sandown Greyhound Racing Club in support of Reaching Out Because We Can and Servants of the Two Hearts. I attended that with Councillor Milkovich. Both charities support the homeless and less fortunate and victims of domestic violence, and they do such an amazing work for residents within our municipality and further out as well. And it was a great opportunity to see all the volunteers there. Sunday, 31st of July, like many of my fellow councillors, I attended Springvale Snowfest. I too would also like to thank those involved in organising this amazing event. On a global scale, we've won awards for it, so it was fantastic to be able to celebrate Snowfest after a 2-year hiatus. So thank you to those who organised it, the volunteers and also the sponsors. And I look forward to Springvale Snowfest in 2023. On Monday, 1st of August, I attended the Housing Strategy Night with members from Launch Housing, Ways, Victoria Police, just to name a few. It was a great opportunity for us councillors to hear about homelessness in the area and how we are tackling it, but also to think about ways that we can continue to address homelessness in Greater Dandenong. On Tuesday, the 2nd of August, I attended the Multicultural and People Seeking Asylum Advisory Committee meeting. I also attended a councillor briefing session on the Railway Parade Shopping Centre concept plans. So watch this space on Railway Parade. Wednesday, the 3rd of August, I attended Coffee with a Cop and a councillor at Palm Plaza with, again, Councillor Milkovich. Another great opportunity to hear from local residents and traders as well about concerns in the area. And that evening, I attended the citizenship ceremony at Springvale Town Hall, where 176 residents were made Australian citizens. And as Deputy Mayor, it was just an honour and a privilege to be able to officiate my first citizenship ceremony, and to see such smiling faces as you hand over the certificate was just an amazing experience for me, let alone for the new citizens. On Friday, the 5th of August, I attended the official opening and tour of Viv's Place. This is a special place in our municipality, only made possible thanks to generous support of donors, partners and the Victorian Government. It is Australia's first supported housing initiative for women and children, and it will also include dedicated care from Launch Housing and Uniting staff. So we should be quite honoured to have this facility in Greater Dandenong to be able to support such vulnerable people in our community. And that night, I attended the Noble Park CFA Annual Brigade Dinner at Sandown Park Hotel, and I just want to make a shout out to all the CFAs in the City of Greater Dandenong for their hard work of their volunteers, their commitment, and also their families' commitment as well. Also would like to promote, they were asking for more women to put their hands up to volunteer, and they did try to recruit me. Time permitting, I might put my hand up down the track, but again, to any females out there who are watching our live stream or later watch it, perhaps consider volunteering for the CFA in Greater Dandenong. That's all from me. Mr Benny, are there any council questions to take on notice?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, there were 12... excuse me. There were 12 councillor questions taken on notice at the last meeting. They've all been answered and are tabled in the minutes.
Thank you, Mr Benny. Is there any urgent business? As there's no urgent business, I declare this meeting closed at 8:33 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Good night. Night, Lana.